Hey, Bulldogs, it's Mrs. Legan, and this is Sophie. And so, this is going to be a story with Sophie today, and she'll probably jump down and run off. Anyway, we hope you guys are having a great day, and we hope that you've been doing some reading. And today, I want to share one of my favorite stories. It is from a genre that I love, which is fairy tales and folk tales. And we all know the folk tale of the three little pigs, and you all know how that story goes. But this one is a little different. This story is called The Three Little Javelinas. And if you've heard it before, then I hope you'll enjoy it again. This story takes place in a different setting than we're used to seeing. And javelinas are these three very hairy kind of pigs. So they are in the pig family, but they are more like boars, which are just big, hairy pigs. And as you can see, this is taking place in the desert. And I want you to listen to the story, and I want you to see if you can hear what happens in the beginning, the middle, and the end. Think about how this is like the story of the three little pigs that you already know, and how it's a little different. So this is The Three Little Javelinas. It's written by Susan Lowell and illustrated by Jim Harris. It's one thing I love about folk tales is that someone else can tell their own version and write it down and just change enough things to make it fun, but it's still basically the same story. The Three Little Javelinas. Once upon a time, way out in the desert, there were three little javelinas. Javelinas are wild, hairy, southwestern cousins of pigs. Their heads were hairy, their backs were hairy, and their bony legs, all the way down to their hard little hooves, were very hairy. But their snouts were soft and pink. One day, the three little javelinas trotted away to seek their fortunes. In this hot, dry land, the sky was almost always blue. Steep purple mountains looked down on the desert where the cactus forest grew. Soon the little javelinas came to a spot where the path divided, and each one went a different way. The first little javelina wandered lazily along. He didn't see a dust storm whirling across the desert until it caught him. The whirlwind blew away and left the first little javelina sitting in a heap of tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds are these little things of grass that sort of blow along. They're sort of like dried grass. Brushing himself off, he said, "I'll build a house with them." And in no time at all, he did. Now you can look at that tumbleweed house, and I'm wondering if you can predict what might happen next. Then along came a coyote. He ran through the desert so quickly and so quietly that he was almost invisible. In fact, this was only one of Coyote's many magical tricks. He laughed when he saw the tumbleweed house and smelled the javelina inside. A tender, juicy piggy, he thought. Coyote was tired of eating mice and rabbits. He called out sweetly, little pig, let me come in." "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin," shouted the first javelina, who had a lot of hair on his chinny chin chin. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in," said Coyote. And he huffed and he puffed and he blew the little tumbleweed house away. But in all the hullabaloo, the first little javelina escaped and went looking for his brother and sister. Coyote, who was very sneaky, tiptoed along behind. I like that word hullabaloo. A lot of commotion and action. Hullabaloo's a fun word to say. The second little javelina walked for miles among giant cactus plants called saguaros. They held their ripe red fruit high in the sky, but they made almost no shade, and the little javelina grew hot. Then he came upon a Native American woman who was gathering sticks from inside a dried up cactus. She planned to use these long sticks called saguaro ribs to knock down the sweet cactus fruit. The second little javelina said, "Please, may I have some sticks to build a house?" Hayu, she said, which means yes in the language of the desert people. So you can see here the saguaro's ribs, the dried out sticks that she's going to use to make the house. When he was finished building his house, he lay down in the shade. Then his brother arrived, panting from the heat, and the second little javelina moved over and made a place for him. Now, I bet you can predict what's going to happen next. Maybe you can turn and tell someone in your family what you think is going to happen, or tell yourself what you think might happen next. Pretty soon, Coyote found the saguaro rib house. He used his magic to make his voice sound just like another javelina's. Little pig, let me come in, he called. But the little javelinas were suspicious. The second one cried, no, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Bah, thought Coyote, I am not going to eat your hair. Then Coyote smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. So he huffed, and he puffed, and all the saguaro ribs came tumbling down. But the two little javelinas escaped into the desert. Still not discouraged, Coyote followed. Sometimes his magic did fail, but then he usually came up with another trick. That Coyote is very determined. The third little javelina trotted through beautiful palo verde trees with green trunks and yellow flowers. She saw a snake sliding by, smooth as oil. A hawk floated round and round above her. Then she came to a place where a man was making adobe bricks from mud and straw. The bricks lay on the ground, baking in the hot sun. The third little javelina thought for a moment and said, May I please have a few adobes to build a house? Sí, answered the man, which means yes in Spanish, the brickmaker's language. I love the different people that we see and the different languages. It's fun to try to read those languages even if you don't know them very well. So the third javelina built herself a solid little adobe house, cool in summer and warm in winter. When her brothers found her, she welcomed them in and locked the door behind them. Coyote followed their trail. I always feel like there's a dun 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 part in the story, and this would be it. And I wonder if you know how the story might end. I know that lots of versions of Three Little Pigs have lots of different endings, so I'm curious to see how this one ends. Little pig, let me come in, he called. The three little javelinas looked out the window. This time, Cody pretended to be very old and weak, with no teeth and a sore paw. But they were not fooled. No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin, called back the third little javelina. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in, said Coyote. He grinned, thinking of the wild pig dinner to come. Just try it, shouted the third little javelina. So Coyote huffed and puffed, but the adobe bricks did not budge. Again, Coyote tried. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. Three little javelinas covered their hairy ears, but nothing happened. The javelinas peeked out the window. Oh, and there they are, just so scared. The tip of Coyote's raggedy tail whisked right past their noses. He was climbing upon the tin roof. Next, Coyote used his magic to make himself very skinny. The stovepipe, gasped the third little javelina. Quickly, she lighted a fire inside her wood stove. What a feast it will be, Coyote said to himself. He squeezed into the stovepipe. I think I'll eat them with red-hot chili sauce. Whoosh! Sizzle. What happened to Coyote? Not a very fun ending for him, is it? Then the three little javelinas heard an amazing noise. It was not a bark. It was not a cackle. It was not a howl. It was not a scream. It was all of those sounds together. Yip, 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 yow! Away ran a puff of smoke shaped like a coyote. I like this picture. The three little javelinas lived happily ever after in the adobe house. And if you ever hear Coyote's voice way out in the desert at night, well, you know what he's remembering. I love the story of the three little javelinas. And now, what I hope you'll do, because we know we always need to do something at the end of our book, I hope that you will tell a family member what happens in the beginning, the middle, and the end of that story. I also hope that you will tell someone how this story is the same as the original Three Little Pigs story that we know and how it's different. Thanks for listening, Bulldogs. Have a great day.